Format.
Okay, got the live stream going for the first
Okay, thank you.
I'll have this sound system turned on,
Okay,
and then this is the microphone
okay,
that we're
perfect.
using.
Okay,
It is because we
That's
have to use this sound system if you want to play videos.
no problem.
So then when you speak, then after you're finished, are you going to invite others to come
Yeah,
up?
okay. Who's next?
Okay.
Okay,
And then I can just kind of be over here and facilitate unless everyone else needs to come up.
that's good.
And then at the end, when no one else is coming forward, is that when you want to?
Yes, that's perfect.
That sounds good.
Thank you.
Well, I will leave this here. Like I said, I'll check with you about 11:30.
That sounds great, yeah. Perfect, thank you so much.
Of course.
Oh, yeah. That's one of the things. She looks like a regular old Jane. But just kind of on the fronts, kind of binoculars.
You sure are.
Yes, they did.
Vicariously here.
Oh, yeah.
I played for it. That was really I'm Joe.
Joe, nice to meet you.
Yeah, what a sweet dude. I mean, that was my choice. Well, I started with Miami Valley Bridge Association in 2015, and I met her shortly after that. I mean, off and on, you know, we didn't play every, and she was away a lot of times. You know, on the trips. And, but she was around, we played, and it was,
I know she had
I don't see him.
there'll be some others that are here, but one of the places with the most.
I just said right out of my mouth.
I know some.
Yeah, when you were in high school, you had the big house? Oh, okay. I never was in the big house. I was in the, where they lived now. And I was there for a while. But I remember when she moved. Oh, I can imagine. I mean, she described it to me. And all that.
Yeah, you would like that. Did you see her with
Kind of toward the end.
You, what was the problem?
I'm good. How are you doing?
So, you know.
This is John.
Joe.
Joe.
I was probably Joann
She's getting in my. Yeah, if you walk out.
Yeah. Your first name?
Because I know I was coming back.
You'd say after you open the
Oh, I know. But we watched that one. And, the party came like to her first part.
We're still here. Kids and your.
Yeah.
So Jim said you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, talk about their travel.
Hi. Nice to meet you. Yeah. Chris.
Yeah, you have. So, yesterday, I came over and
Yeah.
Really? Findlay, nice to see you. No. Oh, we all have, haven't we? Like every time I was down here. We had
Oh my gosh. We're on TV. Oh wow.
I'm going to see you. Yes. Oh, this is. Right, yeah, yeah. I think it was actually better. I think I was I was trying to come up with the number. We moved there in 1953. Yeah, she was on the phone. I always loved her house. I love the good portion.
I have
2 weeks ago, I talked to
Bill.
I know Alzheimer's. Yeah, she's started.
Right. She knows it all.
What did she say? She said, yes.
So you know that the thing is,
Just Christopher, it's not always big. Tell stories. Yeah, I had never heard. He spread them out at the times and always they were definitely good. Right. And you know, like, yeah. So, they don't even know, you know, well, I stayed here. I went to high school in Pittsburgh. I came back to no, Daddy didn't die. They were like, financial. Really? Here's my other son, Matthew. Let's get married.
Great. We're done. I was the assistant general manager. So I actually went to there.
Oh my God, I know. Oh my God. You don't know. Oh, yes. I'm so sad. We're doing it now. Yeah, oh my God, yeah. These are our cousins. John only knows me a couple times, but he was there for remember the no, he's still I know. This is so. John, you guys were blending in there. Yeah, you guys were really neat.
So you were.
lifeguard, he took me to go with him. Lifeguard. And then one time I asked him some chemicals or something. And I inherited it, and I only
What is there?
So I'm just simple. I just enjoy it. I have my carpenter.
You know what? I wish I like so. I'll show you pictures. I just went to shit. I go back there and not one, but I spent like and we were on back there. I mean, I go by the house every time I'm there. It's weird now. It's the whole neighborhood. It's so weird. So when you're growing up, you get so big. You see it now, and it's like, but I mean, oh my God. Yeah. At first, you know, and I actually one time I thought, you know, that spindles on the porch, and I took my bike, and I rammed it into the spindles, and I'm like, you know, it's a car, and I broke the railing of my bike, and it over down the road. You know, my dad used to, because we're so close to the university, I mean, tiny houses, we get just like a walking distance. And they come in the car in front of our house. Daddy was on his work. He and David were bad. David was in and David was in his car, right? Daddy was in his car. And then they come to the door, Daddy was oh my gosh, that whole area. I mean, the which lesson you saw? Okay.
Something about their family.
Who was the people between us? Wasn't he the milk? No, milk. The bread company delivered. You know how he drove a wonder. Yeah. Oh my God. Whoever lived right next door to me, crazy kid, that guy ripped his driveway up, remember, and then he never, you were there. Anyway, yeah, well, that neighborhood though looks pretty ratty.
Are these the famous No, I don't.
And I came to traveling the world.
All of my trips.
Oh my gosh.
They were nice trips. How are you doing? I recognize Dennis across the room. Even after how many years? It's gotta be 20 years, 25 years. I've seen that. Yeah, that's probably right. That's it used to be beautiful and handsome. It's all of that.
Our feet, she goes down in the bin, and she's in there. I spent really long. She works, not you. You two would love talking to people. But anyway, I one so changed, he's had John, Ray, and actually the last package.
You said she agreed.
You know, never let me, I could not hear. And they were like, the thing was, he had beds.
The other McClintock.
They came down like that.
How are you doing?
They were on like that. Yeah, do you remember that, the beds in that place? They would come down like that. Well, what? But for you,
She wasn't there.
this girl, oh, you were here, you were there that summer?
In her band, I built the cabin.
Joann built that cabin in the backyard?
No, I wasn't. I was too young then.
Just Joann and I.
Well, they wouldn't
No,
let me.
Ray wasn't there. No, you weren't.
This was girl.
I was there. The neighbor was there.
And she was in trying to help build it.
Kind of forced her. Joanne, we left. Yeah, so I was just talking.
Oh, yeah. We need to do that one after the East Coast down
Oh, everybody. Oh, that.
Oh, yeah. Way back. No.
Where in California? Just that. And now it's
That's how I would.
as much as I'd like, only because weather's been
All right, so what was your favorite place on your travels? You all work together, right?
Well, my friends, we take a golf trip every summer.
Danny for the nine?
4 days.
Okay. Okay, I know.
Fun, but I'm not.
Yeah, I think it is.
Some of my friends are really good. So I might just got to get out there a couple times. Yeah, I just don't embarrass myself. If I hit 2 good shots a day, like I'm happy.
Bottomless wine has too, right? I love bottomless wine. And if the waiter, didn't know the waiter, we go to the same waiter every night. And he would know us, we wouldn't have to ask. He could say the wine bottle. There's 300 bottles.
I can remember the first afternoon. I was going to I was waiting for my class to go.
I'll look at my watch. Oh,
Yeah, stay out there.
It's a retirement
so you didn't say what your favorite place was?
Well, we haven't been close enough.
Pretty cool. You know what I feel about a place like that? Then all of a sudden this beautiful scenery is. You can't see anything but fog. I get scared about I can eat and drink down the street at the bar.
Jim said.
You set up a sign right for that.
We just left.
Oh. Right, we bring it first. That's where our everything is. And then we took off. From Richmond, and that's where yeah.
And the bar is down
We never taken, well, if Tom didn't take us there, we didn't do it. So,
that one we've been
okay.
And there's a woman here. Oh, yes, right. That's
So
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's great. That's great. When the father
yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Just careful, there's a purse on the ground, so she just.
Mary Jane, go start from. Penny can. Where's Penny?
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for coming out today to honor and celebrate Joann's life. I am going to invite Jim up here to share some stories and share some memories. But before we get started, if you could please just
Good idea.
if you will be coming up here to share memories, we ask that you do speak in the microphone so that the folks viewing at home can hear you on the live stream. We'll go ahead and invite Jim up now. This is a little sensitive, so just be careful. If it does not fit back in your purse, so just place it down here. Okay?
All right. Can everybody hear me okay? All right, great. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you all for coming to honor Joann and to also support our family through this time. I also want to thank the people who are following us on live stream and the people who are thinking about us in their heart and in their thoughts and prayers. I'd also like to thank Jennifer, who was just here, and the folks at Routson. They did a wonderful job of taking care of all the details for this day and for Joann's celebration of life. They've done a wonderful job. I also would like to thank her doctors, Dr. Barry Taylor, and also Dr. Alex Calvo, their staff, Kettering Cancer Cell Company. I'd also like to thank them for allowing me to retire early so I could take care of Joanna. I'd like to thank Hospice of Dayton and their care they provided, and finally home care assistance. Joann had a nursing aide that was with her 4 days a week, especially Zelda, who I don't think could make it today, but Zelda took wonderful care of Joann. Zelda was able to do something that I couldn't do. I could take care of Joann's medicines, I could help get her cleaned up and her clothes on, but I could not take care of her hair or makeup, sorry. And so Zelda could do the care that, take care of that. And Joann really wanted her makeup and her hair taken care of, and Zelda really helped us. Joann did not want a formal service. She wanted us to enjoy telling stories about Joann's life and the kind of person she was. She wanted us to laugh and enjoy, talking about her. Joann loved to sit around and tell stories after dinner. As a family and as we entertained friends, that's one of her most favorite things was the after meals sit down and tell stories. She could laugh so hard that she would fall out of the chair. And that was how she loved life. She wanted us to do that when we had her celebration. I'd like to also start by talking just briefly about Joann's illness, because I do think that she had a very unusual illness, and it helps to understand exactly what happened so that you can accept, the loss of Joann's condition. In 2017, she developed a lung cancer. It was very small. She had surgery. About 10 months later, the cancer came back and she received radiation and chemo, followed by immunotherapy. The immunotherapy, as it turns out, takes a little time, but it works very well. Made a huge difference in the outcome. And so we were very fortunate that she did well with the treatment. But in February of 2025, a CAT scan showed some fluid that developed in the left lung. At first, we thought the cancer had come back, but the CAT scans, the PET scans, studies that we did to try and figure out if this was cancer were all negative. Instead, she had a very rare condition called chylothorax. What happened is that there was a lung where lymphatic leak into the lung, fill it up, and it made it hard for her to breathe. We would drain the fluid out of her chest, but then she lost all kinds of protein, and it caused a lot of futation, lymphatic fluid. So what happened was that she lost a lot of nutritional stuff. So anyhow, the bottom line is that this problem is very rare. There are less than 2,000 cases a year. And as a result, unless we could fix the problem, we knew that it was just a matter of time before she would pass. We went to Northwestern University where they took care of this. They did a wonderful job. Joann had different treatments, including 3 procedures to try and get rid of the fluid in the left lung. And they were able to fix things, but then she had the same process in the right lung. So after 3 weeks at Northwestern, we went home hoping that she would get stronger and be able to have the same process on the right lung. But unfortunately, she got worse and couldn't have the procedures done. She passed away in March of this year after fighting this bad disease for about a year. When Joann was in Northwestern, a very unusual thing happened. Being in healthcare all this time, I watched the doctors come in to work with Joann. Many of them were young women. They would do their exam, their examination, and they would talk to her about the treatment. But then many of them sat down with her and they started asking questions. They recognized that Joann had kind of blazed the travel or the future of these women. She opened up healthcare to women and medical, being a doctor. So anyhow, as I watched this repeatedly with multiple doctors taking care of her who all wanted to hear her story, I was really amazed. And so what I'd like to do is talk about Joann and how she lived. And if we start with Joann's story, we have to start with her grandfather, John Thompson, who was just someone who was worshipped by her mother. Mr. Thompson was a senior vice president at the copper company that made all of the blast furnaces. And Joann's mother, Ruth, worshipped her father. The problem with that was that there weren't many men who measured up to Ruth, and that made things easy or hard for the men in her life. Fortunately, Joann didn't do that, so that helped me out a lot. Anyhow, Joann's mother, Adelaide, was a woman who, it turns out, was a huge baseball fan. And in fact, she listened to the Pirates on the first radio station, KDKA, in the country, and she listened to the Pittsburgh Pirates. So that was kind of a hint of things to come for Joann. After Joann's mother and father had their two kids, David and Joann, Joann's mother divorced her father, and they lived in Pittsburgh. That's where Joann met her good friend Ann Underzant. And Ann was a huge friend when she was a young child, but also then they were very good friends when we moved to Cleveland because Joan lived there, and they became very close friends, and they were baseball buddies. And Ann was wonderful because she was the one who actually wrote Joann's obituary, and she just did such a wonderful job. Ruth Mesh married Edward Myers, who worked in sales. They lived in Brownwood, Texas, and eventually moved to Urbana, Illinois, which is the home of the University of Illinois. Joann loved living in Urbana. This is where she met so many close friends, and she had reunions regularly in Urbana, but also would have reunions with her at our lake house. They also spent time in Pittsburgh with their cousins, John, Ray, and Sally. They used to play in the woods. They loved that. And they really enjoyed spending time with their cousins in Pittsburgh. One of the things that Joann's father did in the summer also when they were in Pittsburgh is he would take them to the Delaware shore. He would teach them about the sea life and all of the shells, the mole crabs, the coquinas, and she did a lot of science and nature and also the ocean. Joann loved, again, growing up in Urbana, and this was the place she thought really had the biggest impact in her life. She had wonderful friends. She loved living in the Midwest. She loved living up in the town of Urbana. It was just a special place for her. This is where she developed her love of baseball, and she was a huge fan of Willie Mays. Her parents let her subscribe to the San Francisco Chronicle. She would she would listen to the games on the radio, and she would score the games. She loved how baseball had a rhythm, a challenge, a strategy. She loved to listen to the radio game, and she loved to listen to how announcers could make you feel you were at the ball game. She loved the fact that it was hard to get a hit, that it was hard to be successful, but still she loved the game, and it became something that was important for the rest of her life. When the end of the baseball season concluded, she would go into a deep depression. She often cried, and she couldn't wait for the season to start again. In fact, when we lived in Cleveland, at the end of the season, she would still get depressed. On the first Saturday of February every year, I had to drive to the ballpark in Cleveland for her to watch the equipment truck leave the parking lot and head for Florida so that the spring training could start. There would only be 2 or 3 other cars in the parking lot to watch this event, but for her, it was the promise of another season. Joann attended Northwestern University and majored in chemistry. So she minored in math and in art history. She did very well, and was Phi Beta Kappa, which is an honor society. She joined the Kappa Kappa Gamma sorority. And again, this was an important place where she met lots of people that remained lifelong friends. At the end of her college career, she met with her advisors and expressed an interest in going to medical school. Unfortunately, she was told she should get married, have a family, and not to think about going to medical school. So instead, she graduated and worked as a chemist in industry, initially in Chicago, but eventually went to Wilmington, Delaware, where she worked for what is now AstraZeneca. She also played duplicate bridge at that time. And that became her love when she retired also. While she was in Wilmington, she had lots of friends, most of them young professionals. And there was something that they did where a group of people would get together and rent a beach house for the summer. They would spend the time at the beach house Monday, Friday through Sunday, and then they would sublease the property Friday morning. Joann was asked to join a beach house that was one of the biggest ones in Dewey. There were 9 guys. She was the 10th partner. And people would just have a wild time at these beach houses. They were big. You could probably, I guess, sleep about 20 people. You would bring friends. They would have huge parties at night and go dancing at places like the Bottle and Cork. And then during the day, they would lay on the beach, listen to the baseball game. They would visit with friends and play volleyball. These friendships that she had from the Delaware shore also stayed with her for the rest of her life. She would go to visit friends. She would go to their weddings. And while she was there, they would listen to the Phillies on WIP radio with Harry Callis, who was a well-known baseball broadcaster. After a couple of years, several years, she got tired of taking care of laboratory rats, so she decided to try and get into medical school. She took a few biology courses. She took the MedCats after using a study book. And it turns out that out of the 4 categories, her lowest score was a 92nd percentile. The highest score was a 99th. She was accepted to, Johns Hopkins. She was one of the first women that they admitted who had done other things. And there were only a few women in the program. Johns Hopkins was a very traditional and hard program. In fact, Johns Hopkins was the foundation of medical education in the United States. There were the 4 professors. Chief among them was a gentleman by the name of Sir William Osler. They had all these traditions. After the first years of training in the classroom, you would go up to the Johns Hopkins Tower and get your lab coat. You would start on the wards. You would take care of patients for the first 2 years, basically the 3rd and 4th year of medical school. And at the end of training, you had to match. So you'd go around and interview to different medical programs for your internship and residency. They would interview you and you would interview them. You would rank each program. The program would rank you. They would put everything into a computer and you would get a match. And the match told you where you were going for the next 3 years. So it wasn't something you had a lot of control of. Fortunately, Joann matched at university in Cleveland. That's how we met. When Joann finished her fellowship, we decided to get married and she came to Cleveland, which was wonderful. I was in the process of going to medical school myself. She started practicing at university, taking care of diabetics primarily, but other kinds of medical problems. It turned out that during that time, there was a huge advancement in the care of diabetics during that time. So she not only had herself, but she had a diabetes nurse educator and a nutritionist who helped with the patients. And this was the standard of care at that time. Carol Mazaros and was one of those people that first started working with Joann. And at one point along the way, the business manager for the Department of Medicine said, you can't do that. So Joann said, well, it's the standard of care. This is an academic setting. We have to do it this way or I quit, which she did. She went into private practice down the road. And it's that she knew what the standards of care were for this problem. And she stood her ground. She was principled. She wanted to provide the best care possible. And she liked to listen to people too. She wanted to hear their story. After she passed away, I got cards from Cleveland from patients who had worked with her 40 years ago. And that's how much she impacted those people. Early in our marriage, we also had a lake house in Ashtabula County. It was filled with secondhand furniture and a deer head named Dewey. It was the place our family spent time when we needed a break. It's where we could have family and friends. Joann had a lot of reunions there, and it was just a special place. In 2003, when we moved to Dayton, my parents went out and found a new lake house in Indiana. And we continued the tradition of having a lake house and of entertaining friends and having a great time with family. When Joann retired in 2009, she wanted to go back to playing duplicate bridge. She had not noticed that when she played duplicate bridge in Wilmington, there were no doctors. And that's because when you're playing duplicate bridge, you can't stop and take a page or a phone call. So this provided an opportunity for her to get back to bridge, and she loved that. And we're very fortunate because in Dayton, there's a wonderful bridge community here, very competitive. She learned how to play the bridge that was being used at that time. She had to kind of learn all new conventions. So Joann, then got sick. I took care of her, and it was really important for me to be able to do that. After she passed away, her good friend Ann arranged for a special tribute to her. We went to the opening day baseball game, and if you watch up here, you'll see that she went to many opening day games. Ann was just on that previous picture, and they put a tribute to Joann on the scoreboard. So you'll see that. Joann had a very wonderful life. She was intelligent, compassionate. She had high standards. She valued her family, her friends. She was a wonderful partner and wife. After she passed, I was cleaning out her drawers, and I found a drawer full of 3x5 cards. Every time we took a trip, and we took a lot, she had 3x5 cards that she wrote up with everything she was going to take. Not only how many pair of things, but the specific items. They were, she would indicate which suitcase they would go in, which packing bag they would go in. And she had these lists dating back to 1995. So you can finally get through this drawer. In the middle of the drawer, I found this envelope. It was actually sealed. It doesn't have anybody's name on it. And I opened it up, and it said,
sorry, this is hard. It said, someday you will find this card in a drawer. You can see. And it said, and we'll still be in love. It wasn't sorry. But that's the kind of person Joann was. And I'll miss her. And I thank you for coming here. Thank you. Anybody who wants to come next? Come out and share their story with Joann. Okay.
That way we won't break down. I'm John McClintock. I am Joann's cousin from Pittsburgh. Been there all my life. So she was about 2 months older than me. So we did spend a lot of summers. We did things. I think I actually in Brandon talked to Edith when we built a cabin. We gathered wood, built a cabin. Mary Jane said we had beds that folded down. But the one story that we laughed a lot about is we played in the woods. And Joann was so intense. I mean, she really got involved in anything she did. So we were built out in the field. There's high grass. We cut the grass, tied it together, wove it between some sticks. So we had a fort. Of course, it was only like a foot or foot and a half high. And we decided at that point that there was a kid in the neighborhood that we were talking about capturing him and bringing him into the fort and torturing him. So Zorro was very famous at that time. So we dyed clothing all black. We had masks. We had whips. We made whips. And it just, every time Joann and I get together, we couldn't believe what we did.
Anybody else? This is Mary Jane, Joann's sister.
Joann was 8 years older than I was. I'm the youngest in the family. And I always really looked up to her. When she was in high school, she was like everything in high school. And Urbana was a great place to go to high school. It's not a huge place. And she was a cheerleader. She was editor of the yearbook. She was, I assume, a class officer of some kind. And she was also they have a queen every year called the Rosemary Queen. The yearbook was called the Rosemary. And she was the Rosemary Queen. And in grade school, I was so proud of her. And everything she did, I thought was really special. And when we were little, back in the 50s, my mother used to cut our hair. And I decided when I was in about 3rd grade that wasn't going to work anymore. I was going to have Joann do it because I was so looked up to her so much. I thought she did a great job. Yeah. And back in those days, she had a bowl cut. And when she was cutting my bangs, she started this. And I had like this huge. And that really embarrassed me. But because she did it, I thought, well, okay, we can deal with this. And one other thing about Joann being a great baseball fan, I'm a baseball fan too. And we used to talk about how many stadiums have you been to, and you have this little contest.
And, but one year I came up here to the playoff game. And if, you know, Cleveland hasn't always been the safest place to be at night. And we were at this game and there's a rain delay. And she was still working. And this is the middle of the week. And I said, Joann, you know, this is getting late. She said, nope. We're gonna hold out. We're gonna hold out. So, you know, the game resumes again. Then it starts to rain again. And I'm like, I'm willing to stay, Joann, but you probably need to get home to go to work. And she said, no, we're gonna stay. Finally, I think we left the park about 1 o'clock. The game was still going on. And she and I walked out of the stadium in Cleveland, walking down the street in Cleveland at 1 a.m. by ourselves. And on the sidewalk, and we were very close to the street because every time we came to an opening, we would be afraid somebody was going to jump out and get us. But nobody was a bigger fan for baseball than Joann. And I always hoped that at the end, I really wanted her to see this baseball season. That was one of the things that upset her the most, that she wouldn't be able to do that. But it's probably a good thing that she's not here, because last night the Cavaliers totally blew that game. And when you're at Joann's house having dinner, on the table is her phone with the Tribe game on, or the Cavaliers. And if the Cavaliers are on TV, the TV's on, no sound. But she would have been very disappointed last night. So it's probably a good thing she wasn't here for that. But she was a fabulous sister. So proud of her accomplishments. We're really going to miss her. Oh. Go ahead.
Sure.
Calm down.
I'm not going to argue with that. My name is Paul Torricelli, and I work for Northwestern University in alumni relations. And in that capacity, I've had a lot of time with Joann over the last 10 years. And I have the best job in the whole world. I get to sit down and have coffee and lunch with really interesting people, and Joann is no exception. You've heard here. I'll miss her very much. The worst part of my job is this part. We bonded not only over her love for Northwestern, her loyalty to Northwestern, but Northwestern athletics. She's a huge Wildcats fan. We're opening a new stadium in the fall, and I'm really sorry she won't see it, but I know she's going to be there in spirit. But we bonded on other things. I'm from the Bay Area. I'm a Giants fan. Any woman that has Willie Mays in their obituary and mentioned at the service is okay with me. And when she found out I was a Giants fan, we were in good shape. I told her I had my Candlestick Park seats back in my place in Evanston. We were set. I'd like to read very quickly. I started to bring my phone up here, but I do this. I'd like to read a quote from one of my favorite authors. His name is Studs Terkel. You may have heard of, very famous Chicago author. And he said, when we love someone and they die, it's like a piece of us dies with them. But they don't really leave us. They live on in us, in our memories, in the way we think, in the stories we tell. They become a part of us in our landscape. And Joann will always be with us as long as we're alive and as long as we talk about her. So thank you for this opportunity. I'm going to miss her very much. Thank you.
May I follow you?
Yeah, you got to wait. You wait in line.
I'm happy to wait.
Go ahead, Barbara.
Go, Barbara.
No, you can't.
No, you go.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
You got to go this way.
That's okay. That's okay.
I'm proud to follow Paul. He and I are buddies too. This outfit is not proper. I don't care. I thought about this, wearing this. My younger grandson was on the management team for Northwestern's basketball. And so when that was over, he gave this to me and several others. Of course, it's too big. I don't care. So I'm proud to wear it. I know Joann wouldn't mind if I wore it, would she?
No.
Because she was an immaculate dresser. You covered a lot of things I did not know. My name's Barbara O'Hara. I also was at Northwestern with Joann, but she and I did not know one another. She's 2 years younger than I. We were both in sororities. Our houses abutted one another, but I never laid eyes on her. I was running up and down the field hockey field, and she was probably peering into a chemistry, what do you call it, test tube, right? Petri, whatever. See, I don't know. I just was a Bachelor of Education, and she was a Phi Beta Kappa and a chemistry major and yada-da-da-da. But I learned a lot about her today. So I learned that Joann and Jim moved to Dayton. Both of them moving here to become doctors. And somebody tipped me off from Northwestern. So I called Joann to introduce myself, and I invited her to go to lunch. So that's how we bonded. And that was probably in 2010. So from then on, we became vast friends. Of course, with Northwestern in the background. So every summer we'd get the schedule for the Northwestern games. And this kind of boggled my mind because I know Joann and Ann, her friend Ann in Cleveland, would sit at the opening games of the Cleveland Indians, who they were back then, right? Mm-hmm. And they'd sit there opening day. Freezing cold, as she would tell me. Rain. Unbelievable. But when it came time for us to choose the Northwestern game in Evanston we wanted to go to, we each would choose 2 or 3 dates. We had to work around when you all went to the lake house, and I would be going up to northern Michigan for 4 months. But Joann always worked around a date that was a warm day, possibly in Evanston. And I always thought, if she's sitting at opening day for the Cleveland Indians in the rain and the sleet and the snow, why is she so worried about being in the warm stadium club at Northwestern on a warm day? So she would always choose a team or two, opposition to Northwestern, that she felt Northwestern could beat. I would choose 1 or 2 teams that would be a challenge that we may upend them and win. So somehow we figured out which one to go to. And you stated she cried when the Indians. I never saw Joann cry when Northwestern lost, and that was a period of time when we were losing quite a bit. But we've been to 6 years in a row to bowl games. Right, Penny?
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, we go to these games, and I remember the first one, I was usually the one to drive, because Joann's navigational skills weren't the best. And Jim would be invited sometimes to go. You went with us once, and you drove us once or twice.
A couple times.
Yeah. Jim would get coffee for me early in the morning and bring it to my room, but Jim wouldn't go to the games. He'd go to the bookstore. Then he'd find a good bar, maybe in our hotel, and drink Cabernet Sauvignon, right? So Joann and I would go, but most of the games we were driving by ourselves. So that's 6 hours of being in a car with Joann. And I know you've heard the expression, and I'm forgetting it right now. She always would say this, something about how you know. Where's Mary Ann? Mary Ann, she told me you would say this all the time. Of course you know, or something like that?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, anyway, so I got to know Joann very, very well. It was a lot of 6 hours, confidentialities, fun stories, laughing. But when I picked her up at their house, I thought, my God, we're only going to be gone Friday and come back Sunday. The gear this woman had about blew me away. She had her wig bag. She had her Yeti cup. She had her bag that had her favorite cookies and snacks. Not to mention the carrying bag of clothing. Not to mention another bag that had her computer, or I call it fancy phone, her fifth appendage, her cell phone. I mean, there was so much luggage. You helped carry it out. You know all about it. So we came home on Sunday, and of course, one of these times I made a mistake and made the wrong turn. So it was dark because I had waited a lengthy period of time for Joann, because her habit was after a game to stay up and listen to the analysts talk about the game. So I was to knock at her door the morning we were leaving, Sunday morning, 9 a.m. I knocked on her door. Knock, 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 knock. Joann finally came to the door, not dressed, in her nighty, bathrobe, whatever. I was up till 2 a.m. listening to the WHIO talk about the Northwestern game. I'll be down shortly. 2.5 hours later, I'm waiting for Joann outside the hotel. All the people walking by who lived in the area with their dogs, I got to know them. I read the entire Sunday New York Times. Joann finally came down. We had breakfast. And I think we probably left there, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 in the afternoon. I made a mistake in the turn to get out of Chicago, I-95 or 95, whatever it was. So Joann is navigating. I'm surprised I'm even here. Wow. And I really do think, as it got to be dark, that we were going around in circles perhaps, and I started noticing similar things. We finally got back to Dayton. Finally, we were on these back roads, farmhouse back roads, not major expressways getting out of Chicago. And we finally got home, and I ribbed her and ribbed her. I think that's the last trip we took. I do. I really think it is, because then she became unwell and wasn't able to come, unfortunately. And so there you are. So I have to also tell you that I have a kitty named Pizza. And Pizza's about 2.5 years old. And Joann had a habit years ago when I first met her of making food for the 3 dogs. Willow, Danny, and Louie. Neat dogs. She'd spend the whole weekend, your family members know this, I'm sure. She spent the whole weekend making food for these dogs, and it was good food. It was food we could eat. Lamb and good vegetables and all of that. So I always knew her as being a dog person, never a cat person. Then I had a cat recently named Fitzgerald, who was named after Northwestern's fabulous football coach. And of course, something happened to Fitzgerald. He's going to be with Joann. So now I have this kitty named Pizza. And so Joann became quite interested in pizza. And she bought me, and I bought one, a toy. There was a package of about 6. These are crazy. Her girl that she would see every week or whatever, who was here today, Jessie, who did her nails, told her about these innocuous plastic toys. So in the package were about 6, red, blue, green, pink. The only 2 toys that Pizza plays with are the green and the yellow. And my neighbors and Joann thinks that Pizza is part human. So, really, this is true. Joann would call me often. May I come over and see Pizza? And I was honored that she wanted to see Pizza. Jim will often ask me, how was Pizza? And this is really strange because he's almost human. He was racing around my condo today and talking like crazy. And I just wondered, and I said, do you sense something? So Pizza's here with us. So while Joann was not well, I went to see her several times, and I took Pizza over in his carrying case to see Joann. And he raced around her condo, and I had a toy. That made me feel good, and Pizza good. So I'm going to end this diatribe with 3 things. I'm really happy to meet your family. I've heard about all of you for so long. It's nice to put face with a name. I have 3, though, really big wishes. One wish is that I wish my husband, Bob, had met Joann. They could have sparred over medical talk and so many, and meet Jim, spar over and talk about literature and history. Second big wish is I wish Joann and I could be together at our Northwestern's new stadium, which is premiering this fall, when we beat Ohio State. Okay? And my last big wish is I wish we didn't have to be here today. I'm sorry we're here today. I'm going to miss her. She's a good friend. We shared a lot, stuff you don't know about. And I have no idea who I'm going to go to Northwestern to be with, but Paul's here and he'll get me a good seat. Right, Paul? Find me a great man, too. Thank you for letting me be part of this. Next.
Well, I'm glad I let you go first, because, and a lot of laughs, because I'm not sure I'll make it through it either.
Yeah, okay. Pardon me?
I said, I'm glad you made everybody laugh. I hoped it would keep me from doing this.
Okay, you can do it.
When our mother died in the early 2000s, she made it very clear that she was now the matriarch of the family, and she would be here to take care of us. And that she did for all the remaining years of her life. And she was wonderful to all of her nieces and nephews not having children. Jim and she often referred to them as that they were her children. And she was wonderful. I think everybody would agree with what a wonderful aunt she was. She was my rock after 2019 when I lost my husband. And I could call her any time of the day or night. I called her frequently. She called me. We laughed. We were unfortunately on opposite sides of baseball. I'm a Chicago Cubs fan through and through. The week of the World Series in 2016, we never talked to one another. We were afraid of what we would say to one another. And I'm very happy we came out on top. But, what can I say? And people have talked, and she promised, I had to promise her that I wouldn't say too much too serious if I said anything, because she knew that this would be hard for me to get up and do. But I have to tell a couple funny stories. A couple of you, Barbara, you talk about her directional sense and whatever. Several people in the audience here are going to moan when I tell. Jim's over there already laughing at what I'm about to say. She came to visit me. I lived in Chicago area most of my life, but I'm now in what many of my friends refer to as Hooterville. I come from Crossville, Tennessee. And she came to visit me one week as part of a bridge tournament she was going to in Gatlinburg. And so she came and stayed with me a few days ahead of that. And she drove, which made me very nervous. But she got there safely, and she went back over to Gatlinburg for the tournament and then came back and stayed a couple more days. She got ready to leave, and I said, now you know how you're going to go. You're going to go and you're going to get on Peavine Road, and you go straight ahead, and you'll come to Interstate 40. And you head east on Interstate 40. I get a call from Jim, maybe 5 hours later, something like that. He's just gotten off the phone with Joann, and she was not too far from crossing the Mississippi River. I'm not exaggerating. And so he had to redirect her up through Louisville to get back up to pick up 75 to get home. And I think it was like 11 or 12 at night, something like that, before she made it home. So Barbara, I can identify with your pain of getting lost and never letting her direct. I also have to tell you, again, on a visit to her when she lived in Wilmington, Delaware, we went to a Phillies game. And it was a night game, of course. The night game gets out late. She's had season tickets. It's towards the end of the season. I think it could have even been Labor Day weekend that we were going. And she gets lost getting out of the damn parking lot. And we end up down, what is this? Is it Schuylkill River? Is that, what's the river? Okay. We're down in a not so nice neighborhood again, circling around trying to figure out how to get home. That was another very late night. So that's a little bit about Joann's navigational skills. I'm really the only one in the family that has decent navigational skills. Our brother did it. Mary Jane, you're kind of no. Spoken by a daughter, so I'll take that to be true. I do fairly well for myself. So I know she would appreciate me telling you about those experiences. I never trusted her even here. She would try to give me directions where to go, and I knew Dayton better than she did. She wanted to go to the cleaners, and she says, yeah, I think let me look it up. I said, Joann, I know where the cleaners are. we can go. So her directional sense is very large in there. People have talked about her adult life and what wonderful things she did. She was definitely a model. I'm in the middle. I'm a year older than Mary Jane, but I had the same feeling. She was amazing. She did well in school. She did well at virtually everything she ever did in her life. And she was definitely a model to look up to. But she also had a, I hate this old age, risky, I don't know how to describe it, behavior. We traveled and vacationed together when we were both single. And we took a trip to Jamaica. And I won't give you all the details, but we ended up hooking up with.
Hanging out.
Sorry, you're right. I'm sorry, yes. We were hanging out with 4 gentlemen at the resort we were at and learned that they were Secret Service agents. Our mother had had a heart attack that we were going on vacation to Jamaica at the time, would have been in the 70s. And although I think unrest is part of the day in Jamaica, but it wasn't real good then, and she thought we were foolish to go. But we went, and we were in an all-inclusive resort, but we met up with these guys who told us they were pencil salesmen and turned out to be Secret Service agents in town to protect John Jr., who was visiting with his aunt and uncle who owned a home in Half Moon Bay in Jamaica. So we hung out with them and had dinner with them and everything else, and we wanted to go into the Banana Boat, a famous bar in Jamaica. So they said, well, we'll take you. It's not safe for you to go. So we went in to go to the bar, and they're walking with us. They had a car, of course, and everything, and they see this group of probably 6 or 8 black men walking towards us. Okay. Thank you, Christopher. But they pulled their coat jackets back to show their .357 Magnums hanging around their waist, and these guys scattered all over the place. They just disappeared. So Joann and I had a lot of good laughs about how our mother was home worrying about our safety, and we really could not have been safer with who we were hanging out with. So I was one of the lucky ones that got to go to the house in Dewey Beach. There are stories that just can't be told about that place. I have to assure you, I went for every Memorial Day, 4th of July, and Labor Day for 3 or 4 years. And those were wild parties. And you know that she participated with. You're at the center now? Yeah. What? Oh, okay. Well, I'm not going to say anything else you can. So I just, she's been my rock. I've talked to her multiple times a week, talked about silly things. We talked about serious things. She's chastised me for things that I've done, but I'm going to miss her terribly. And I must say that I'm glad she's no longer suffering. Her end of life was not pleasant, and I'm glad that we don't have to remember that. Oh, no. Come on. Come on.
I swore at my father's. I'll try not to today. Outside of my parents, Jim and Joann. Oh, there it is. Probably the most influential people in my life. And I want to tell a couple stories that illustrate kind of our sense of humor, which was a through line for our relationship. I don't remember when. I was young, elementary. We showed up to Cleveland, probably for holiday, Thanksgiving or Christmas, and I had a black White Sox hat on. And she wouldn't let me in the house. I told her I'd put it in the car. She said no. I had to go in the trash. So for whatever reason, no, not for whatever reason, for obvious reasons, I did that. She took me to, I want to say it was the mall that's attached to, used to be the Gund Arena in Cleveland. I don't know what it's called now.
and she bought me an Indians hat. I'm a Cubs fan. I was young enough that I didn't have my Cubs allegiance, so I apologize for wearing the Sox hat, but that'll give you a little bit of her sense of humor. A couple years later, Joann took me to countless baseball games. 95, 97 seasons for Cleveland were pretty good seasons. World Series trips, they lost both times, unfortunately. But in 1997, the Cleveland Cavaliers hosted the All-Star game. And I don't know if it was my Christmas present or a birthday present, but she got me tickets to a lot of it. Not the All-Star game, but a lot of the other stuff. And she had she liked sports cars. I don't know if you noticed. For those of you who knew her, but she had a red Honda Prelude, which had a back. I think I'm the only human that was in her back seat. It was usually reserved for her dogs. But she drove my mom and I. Oh, why is this making me cry? Down to the stadium, and there's traffic, and we're behind a bus at a red light. There's a police officer navigating traffic, and the bus pulled into the intersection, and she couldn't see the light, and then it turned, and she pulled it behind it. The bus turned, and the cop told her that she had to go back, and she stopped, and she didn't move, and he came over and knocked on the window, and she flipped him the bird. Which was probably one of my favorite memories of her. Probably forecasted or foreshadowed a lot of my future interactions with authority. But in 2016, Cubs played the Indians, and prior to the series, she called and we made a little bet. She wanted, I want to say it was like 10 pounds of soft shell blue crab if the Indians won. And in return, she would give me 10 pounds of lobster tails if the Cubs won. I'm a Cubs fan, so I love that they won, but I really wish she could have seen the Indians get it done. She would have loved it. But we've talked about her travels a little bit, and just something that I gave her an endless amount of, I'm trying not to swear, guff for. When she traveled, she would practice her packing. And when she traveled, she would put tissue paper between her garments so that they didn't get wrinkled. I'm assuming it had to do something. It had to make sense, I assume. But when she practiced, she would use the tissue paper as well, which just drove me nuts. And so for Christmas, we're very different personalities. She's organized. I am, as everyone knows, not organized. So we would exchange tissue paper as Christmas gifts pretty frequently. So again, just a couple stories about one of my favorite people that I'll miss dearly. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Michael Clamo. I am Joann's nephew. Two of the best parts of my life, two of my favorite parts of my life were my childhood, and then very recently over the last few years. And it's no secret that those times were the times when Joann and I were the closest, and we spent the most time together. In my childhood, I know that they had second-rate furniture or second-hand furniture at the lake house, but it was a first-rate vacation home. To my siblings, to my family, it was like the Taj Mahal. We would swim, we would fish, we would eat very well, have all the candy and the soda we wanted, we could consume. It was wonderful. A lot of great memories were made there. In fact, we came up with a version of pickleball way before it was cool or trendy like it is now. We played all the time, got pretty competitive. I think a couple of paddles were even thrown at one point or another, but it was a great time. And of course, at the lake house, I also watched and listened to a lot of baseball with Joann. And that was in the late 90s with those great Indians teams. And those are the teams I grew up on. I know a lot of people here from Cincinnati, maybe Northern Kentucky, and they think of the Big Red Machine as the ideal baseball team. And that's how I feel about those late 90s Indians teams. And whenever I think of them, which is often because they're very revered in Cleveland, I also think of Joann. And of course, we love the holidays, Christmas, Easter, and we got a lot of gifts, very generous gifts from my parents, but also Jim and Joann and Laura and Steve. And we were so blessed and so fortunate because they treated us like their own children. And, of course, those gifts were wonderful, the material things, but infinitely more important were the memories we made and the time we were able to spend together. Then going to adulthood, I was in law school at Case Western. Jim attended med school there, and it was tough. It was very challenging at times, but Jim and Joann would make a point to come all the way up from Dayton a couple times a year to visit me, spend a weekend in Little Italy where we would go out to eat, have brunch, go to a couple Guardians games, and just spend time together. And it was so nice to get away from those challenges at law school after hearing about some of the antiquated opinions of her academic advisors. I feel like I'm kind of soft for thinking that my law school experience was challenging. But it was so nice because, again, it was just a way to remove myself from those stressors, but also they understood the rigors of that type of education. And so they were able to give me advice, encourage me. And I don't know if I would have made it through without them. And during that time, we also attended a lot of different sporting events. I went to my first Cavs game with Joann. When I was a child, I went to my first Indians game with her. We went to an opening day in 2019. That was my last year of law school, and it was 35 degrees. It was a sunny day, but it was 35 degrees, and I'm wearing a pea coat, gloves, a hat, and I think she had a light windbreaker on, maybe some gloves, but I was like, my goodness, this is incredible. She's just sitting here through 9 innings, maybe got up once, didn't complain about the cold at all. But then afterwards, I heard stories from both her and Ann about sitting in the snow on opening day. And so I realized that was just literally another day at the ballpark for her and Ann. We went to the second to last game, the penultimate game last year when the Guardians clinched a playoff spot. CJ Kafis was hit by a pitch. But that was such a special moment for Jim and Joann and I to share that really exciting time. And I think that was her last game. And so that was very special. And, despite all the challenges, not only was she there cheering on the Guardians, she was, I think, keeping score at one point. And she taught me a lot of things, how to be a fan, how to be a generous person. And, there are a lot of traits that I carry forward that I found that she really exhibited throughout her life. And I'll talk about those in a minute. She took a genuine interest in my work. I'm an assistant prosecutor in Madison County, just west of Columbus. And it was really special that she showed such a genuine interest in what I did. I told her some dramatic stories, some funny stories, some tragic stories. They were all true, but really it was wonderful just to be able to share them with her, and she took such an interest in that. Just when childhood ends, our enjoyment of gifts and good things does not end. Recently, Joann, through Jim, gifted me a car, possibly the most generous gift I've ever received, tangible gift. And it's such a reflection on her generosity, her wonderful character, that in her last weeks of life, when she was battling this terminal illness, she was still thinking about me, thinking about her family, and thinking about ways she could improve our lives when she's improved our lives immensely. Over the last few years, I was able to visit Jim and Joann, have dinners there, watch games with them, because I only live an hour away, west side of Columbus. And while Joann and I were watching the games, Jim would be cooking dinner. And then we would eat. It would be a wonderful meal. And then Joann and I would go back to the TV, and Jim would go to the kitchen to do the dishes. And Joann and I would be talking about the game, and Jim would chime in with these really informed opinions and this informed insight about basketball or baseball. And it was fun to listen to the banter between he and Joann. Joann would say, wow, for someone who thinks sports are so lowbrow and so beyond him, you know a lot about this, don't you? Quoting Jose Ramirez's OPS or Donovan Mitchell's three-point shooting percentage over the last 10 games. And it was fun to see Joann's love of sports kind of funneled in that way to show her love of Jim as well. And I was thinking about how to conclude this yesterday, my remarks, and then it just hit me while watching the Cavs. Let's talk about the Cavs. For those of you who didn't see it, the Cavs lost a heartbreaker yesterday. They were down throughout the game. They forced overtime. They were up by 1 point in overtime with about 10 seconds to go. And then a Toronto player with about 3 seconds to go shoots a really deep three. Evan Mobley, the best Cavs player on the defensive end of the floor, gets a great contest. And the ball hits the back of the rim. And typically, for those of you who've seen basketball, played basketball, the ball will bounce over the backboard and go out of bounds, maybe bounce back toward the players on the court. But it's like the laws of gravity and physics cease to exist in those few seconds, because the ball bounced about 6 feet in the air and came straight back down through the hoop. Cavs lose. Game 7 is tomorrow. Only against Cleveland. Only against Cleveland. And I was thinking, how would Joann react to this? She would be disappointed. She would be frustrated. But ultimately, like every great Cleveland fan would, she'd shake it off, and she'd be optimistic about tomorrow's Game 7 with this maybe subconscious foreboding, knowing that something bad's going to happen, like it always does. But, you know, that's a perfect, like a microcosm of who she was. She was very optimistic. She loved to travel, very loyal, very passionate. And all of those are such great traits to live a great life. And I try to emulate those traits every day. She was a wonderful woman, and we'll miss her very much. Thank you.
It won't stay, okay. I have to have my notes here. Can you hear me okay? Mm-hmm. Okay. Having Joann as my sister-in-law was like winning the lottery. She was a cherished friend, and confidant, and I would have been lost without her love, guidance, and support through both the good times and the bad times. Joann was kind, intelligent. She always dressed to the nines and was a lot of fun. Joann and I had many great times together, but my fondest memories span over 20 years spent at Lake Santee. Here are some of my favorite memories. Hearing Joann, Laura, and Michael talking baseball while the Guardians were either on TV or on the radio. Sunbathing on the dock the 4th of July weekend, watching fireworks in the evening. Choosing which grader's ice cream to have when there were 50 different flavors in the freezer. Watching Joann painstakingly make a salad, with each piece cut precisely the same size and shape. She was very particular about that. It must have been her chemistry background. Celebrating Jim and Joann's 25th wedding anniversary, and wondering if Jim would ever wear the black leather bikini briefs he received. Witnessing Joann's kindness toward all living creatures by capturing spiders found in the house and setting them free outside. Seeing Joann's generosity and expressing her pleasure when our children brought friends to the lake house, which James and Caitlin continue to do today. Joann welcomed everybody. Then I also enjoyed Joann's amused look each time my dad ran out of the house with his squirt gun in hand to chase the squirrels off the bird feeders. Then there was our adventure to Indiana University for a college visit with Amanda and Aaron. We had a great day, and we even got to see Maggie. On the way back to the lake house, which was before we had Google Maps or on our cell phones, Joann suggested we take a shortcut by turning onto 850 West. So I did, and ended up driving 40 extra minutes after arriving at a small town in the middle of nowhere. Joann's retirement party was a blast at the lake house and included a girls' spa day in Batesville. Another memorable celebration was when we celebrated my mother's 90th birthday during COVID. I remember Joann laughing until she cried while we watched silly videos of animals on our cell phones late at night before going to bed. And then secretly planning to get Wayne Green to clean the yard and pick up sticks so Jim would not have that on his plate. I loved hearing Joann's laughter at Michael entertaining us at dinner as we heard the funny stories of his life as a prosecuting attorney, and there were many funny stories. Then seeing her happiness as Brian and Amanda brought Clara to the lake house for the first time. Clara was about the same age as Jane's when Jim and Joann bought their first lake house in Roaming Shores. Boy, does time go fast, and here we are. So thanks for all the memories, Joann, and cheers to you. You will be remembered as a true fan of the Guardians, a lover of Grader's ice cream, a kind soul to creatures great and small, not being so good at following directions in a car, a true and loyal friend with a great sense of humor, and someone who valued time spent with family. I'm so grateful for our time together. Life, especially at Lake Santee, will not be the same without you. We love you.
My name's Carol Mazzaros. I was Dr. Findlay's diabetes educator, and I met her in 1988, sorry. One of the first things that I found out about her is she looked over my resume, and on my resume I had written I was a member of the Cleveland Browns fan club. And she said, "Can I ask you something?" And I said, "What?" She goes, "Why would you put that on a resume?" And I said, "Because I didn't want you to think I was a nerd." So I was hired, and she met my husband, who knows everything about sports. So him and Joann got along great. As the years went on, I've learned a few things from her, how meticulous she is, how neat she is, how organized she was, and she taught me so many things about being organized that I used for my other two jobs that I had. I will say she was not just a fan of the Indians. She took me to a lot of games. We had a lot of fun times. She also took me to the Cavs game every Martin Luther King Day. And we always played hooky until the one time when we saw the boss there. We were lost. She also loved her Browns. She loved her Browns until Art Modell fired Bernie Kosar because of lack of skills. She turned in her tickets. I would have died for those tickets. One time we went to a Browns game. It was one of those very, very, very cold ones. And I had gotten these warming seats. And you put them in the microwave when you're at home. And then when you get to the game, they're still warm. Well, we put them in the microwave too many times. And by the time we got to the game, they had leaked everywhere and we froze. So we had good times together, a lot of good times. And I've missed her since she's moved to Dayton. She also would let us go to their lake house in Roaming Shores with my family, and we'd have a blast. It was the only way we could afford a good vacation. So she was also very generous. At the lake house, we knew the fish that answered you at the door. We loved the lake. My kids got to learn how to fish. Otherwise, they would have never gotten to do that. We had a great time, and that was because of her and Jim. And we thank her for it. If I hadn't thanked her enough when she was alive, I'm thanking her now. And I thought I was the only one that was bad at directions. She was worse. When I came down to Dayton to visit her, she taught me something. Get a Garmin. And I did. And I swear I don't use those phones. I use my Garmin, and my kids are like, when are you going to give that up? Never. I love my Garmin. It gets me to and fro. So thank you, Joann. We miss you a lot.
Hi, I'm Edie Allen, and I'm sort of representing the Urbana crew that she grew up with. I've known Joann probably, I would guess I am probably one of her earliest friends that's still alive. And I moved to Urbana when I was 8 years old, and she moved in shortly thereafter, 2 doors down. We lived on a street that was brick paved. It had the old street lights, you know, with the round globes. We would go to a park a block away, play the tide, dodgeball, maybe some baseball. We had to come home when the street lights came on. It was truly Leave It to Beaver, you know. And but what really bound us together was, I think I was the only other girl that was a huge baseball fan. So we united with that. Of course, I was a Milwaukee Braves fan before they moved to Atlanta. And she only talked about Willie Mays, and I was in love with Eddie Matthews, who played third base and was their home run king. We were friends, really good friends, until we graduated, and then we went our separate ways. I don't think anybody knows that our goal when we were maybe 12 years old was to be the first women to be announcers for a professional That didn't work out for either of us, but she made some good career choices. I think she did fine. She was so generous with her inviting this whole group of gals to the lake house. We had reunions there and other places, of course, but there very often. And it was every time we got together, it was just like I'd seen her, you know, the week before. And I know she's somewhere wonderful now, probably hanging out with Willie Mays. Oops.
I thank Jim for including me in this honored event today. I'm one of the representatives from the Miami Valley Bridge Association, and I had the good fortune and luck to be able to be a partner of Joann's, along with a number of other individuals. The one individual who's here today, Joyce Dennis, who Joann was always so complimentary of in terms of Joyce's bridge skill and mentoring mentoring Joann so that Joann could achieve her life master award. I think in 2021 is when that was. My name's Joe Hammond. My background, I'll just say briefly, is a clinical counselor, and this little story I'm going to tell about Joann and myself kind of reflects that. The word that comes to my mind is cognitive dissonance, and that's when you try to hold two contradictory ideas in your mind, trying to find balance, but that somehow between those two contradictory ideas. And in getting to know Joann, which was my good fortune, and Jim, and in getting to know them, Joann and I sometimes would play bridge out of town in Columbus. There would be a tournament over there, and we would drive back and forth. I would come down, pick Joann up, take her back. Fortunately, I didn't have to deal with Joann's directional issues. I didn't even know about those until today. And I think another time we went to a tournament in Kentucky. And so we would, of course, talk about things other than bridge during the drives back and forth. And one of the things we talked about were Jim and Joann's yearly sojourns to Florida. So, sometimes I would call Joann on the phone and say, Joann, you available for today to play bridge? Or I'd call her sometime in advance, of course. And she'd, oh, no, I have to pack for Florida. Oh, okay. When are you, Jim, leaving for Florida? Oh, next month. Okay. Well, I mean, so you're not going to be available till you get back? No, probably not. So it's okay. Well, I'll call you when you get back. So then, anyway, during these conversations we would have back and forth from Columbus, I'd say, well, Joann, I got to know she was, a graduate of Northwestern University and Johns Hopkins Medical School. And I was saying, well, Joann, tell me about your packing for Florida. And I didn't know about the cards until Jim told me about those when he and I had a conversation when he called me. And as Jim and I said in our phone conversation, we want our airline pilots who are flying us to have some obsessive compulsive attributes, so they very carefully go over and back over the safety protocols if they're flying. Same thing we want for our physicians. We want them to go back and over our records and make sure that the treatment they're providing is what we're looking for. Anyway, so as I got to talking with Joann about packing, and she said, yeah, well, the packing extends over several weeks. And I'm thinking, this was where the cognitive dissonance came in. I'm thinking, this is a Johns Hopkins graduate. And she's taking 3 weeks to pack to go to Florida. And so I said, well, I said, well, would you mind? I said, you don't have to go into this, but I'm a clinical counselor, and would you mind if I just asked you a little bit more closely about the process of your packing? I mean, one of the courses I had to take was behavioral assessment. So in that course, you try to, in a granular way, walk a person through whatever it was that they were challenged by, so you could gain some kind of, I was just looking for a kernel of information as what is taking this individual 3 weeks to go to Florida. And what I found out is, and this goes to Joann's generosity that I'm hearing so much about today, is that she would start packing, and then her telephone would ring. Well, of course, Joann being Joann, she's going to take that call. Well, and Joann being Joann, how much she loved people and liked people and so many people in her life, well, that call might go on for an hour, a couple of hours, 2.5 hours, whatever. And then, of course, as we know, Joann also had a little bit of distractibility, so maybe she wouldn't get right back to the packing after the telephone call. So finally, I thought I got to come up with an intervention for Joann. So I said, Joann, I said, I want you to know if I call you while you're packing for Florida, and you can see my number on there. I said, don't answer it. I said, keep packing. In other words, I'm not going to die if you don't answer your telephone right then. And I said, that's your business, but maybe, if you let your friends know that when they call, that you can just text them back and say, I'm packing right now, I'll call you in an hour or something like that. So that was my intervention. Anyway, Joann thanked me for that. And I don't know if the last number of you didn't help. But at any rate, what a wonderful privilege it was to know Joann and to be able to play bridge with her. Another one last little detail. She was one of the few partners I ever had, and that would stay after the bridge game. And the computer produces hand records of the games, and the bridge hands are actually in duplicate bridge. Are generated on the computer ahead of time. Everyone plays the same hands. That's why it's called duplicate bridge. And it's who plays those hands the best that will get the higher score at the end of the game. Well, so at the end of the game, the computer hand, the hands are generated on the computer, and they come out on a hand record, paper hand record, and then you can look at that and your score sheet and determine what could we have possibly done differently that would have gotten us a little higher score. Well, Joann always wanted to stay after the game. Oh, we got to go over the hand records. We got to go over the hand records. So the game was already 3 hours, and invariably we would be there. And the person that directed the game said, "Well, I'm going to leave now, and I've cleaned up the kitchen. Would you two turn off the lights?" Yes, we'll turn off the lights. So Joann and I would sit there and analyze every hand that we played and go over that. And not only did I play bridge with Joann for 3 hours, but then I spent another hour and a half going over all the hands, which I really enjoyed. I mean, that is how you can, improve your game. And Joann, like myself, we wanted to improve our game. So that was great fun also, and got to know Joann, and she's talked so often about not all of you, I didn't know all of you, but some of you, and what was always so, expressed her really good luck in having such a loving and supporting family. So thank you for letting me speak, and my sympathy goes out to all of you. What a wonderful human being.
Anybody else? I mean, it's fine. So I want to thank you all for coming. It's almost 1 o'clock. It's been a wonderful time sharing about Joann. And I wish you all safe travels back to home. I know the family's going to be getting together and some friends to get something to eat. And we're going to our house later. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for supporting us during this time, for being Joann's friend, family member, and we'll be thinking about Joann. Thank you.
Folks, I really do thank you all for sharing your memories and support. As we conclude the service today for Joann, I know she was a baseball fan, so what better way to conclude the service than singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." So if you don't mind, on the count of 3, we'll all sing. 1, 2, 3. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and cracker jacks. I don't care if I never get back. It's root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. Thank you so much, folks. I hope you have safe travels home. Please help yourself to some Cracker Jacks on the way out.
Thank you.